Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, desolate serfs, peasants, vassals. I'm a useful idiot, and I have a pretty decent question to ask, I think. Whatever happened to George Bush? Remember, he was the guy that was president before Barack Obama. And my regulars, of course, know that I don't mean to pick on Republicans. I'm just on a streak right now. I'll give plenty of time to the Democrats, too, because that's my favorite hobby, is picking on all party line drones. But to get back to topic, I was reminded of this because Paul Ryan was out giving a speech in Iowa, and of course he's going after Bill Clinton, who is scheduled to speak at the Democratic National Convention, because Clinton is a liberal icon and he towers over the Democratic Party. And of course he will have a prime speaking spot at the Democratic National Convention. And he will remind all the liberals why they like being liberals, I guess, because a lot of them are forgetting, of course, under Obama. But I find this really interesting. Paul Ryan is out speaking in Iowa, and he said, quote, unquote, Paul Ryan, my guess is we will get a great rendition of how good things were in the 90s, but we're not going to hear much about how things have been the last 4 years. Well, I've got another question to propose there, Mr. Ryan, and that is, how come you're not telling us how great things were back in the 2000s, the 8 years of George W. Bush that preceded Barack Obama? In fact, you go on to speak more about Clinton, and you say that President Clinton, well, we got welfare reform, and he worked with the Republicans in Congress, unquote. And so here he is showering Bill Clinton with accolades in an effort to tear down Barack Obama. And of course he's fibbing again, because those of us who remember the 8 years of Bush administration found that Clinton could work with the Republicans, but of course, just like all partisan houses, the Republicans in Congress fought Clinton all the way. And that's the way it works in Washington, D.C. It doesn't matter whether it's Republicans or Democrats. Whoever controls Congress is not going to work with the president who is of the other party. That's just a norm in Washington, D.C. So then Paul Ryan goes on. He goes, Obama didn't moderate his positions like Bill Clinton did. He went hard to the left. So once again, Paul Ryan is skipping over 8 years of Bush, where he and his administration, including the likes of Dick Cheney, went hard to the right. And but we're just going to pretend like that didn't even happen. In fact, Paul Ryan goes a step further. He says, quote, President Obama? What did we get with President Obama? A gusher of new spending and only demagoguery from those of us who offered solutions. So, unquote. And I take issue with that because, once again, the gusher of spending began with 8 years of Bush. You remember, the administration that preceded the Obama administration. And it's also demagoguery, Mr. Ryan, to say that you offered solutions and President Obama was being a demagogue by ignoring your solutions. Paul Ryan, you have no solutions. And so anyway, but I want to get to the heart of the matter, and that is the fact that where is George Bush? And so the Republicans can pick on the Democrats for holding up their liberal icon, Bill Clinton. But it's very telling that they can't hold up their Republican president as an icon. George Bush, he was in office for 8 years just before Obama. How conspicuous that he was not mentioned in 4 days of the Republican National Convention. How conspicuous that they can't bring out bring out George Bush to endorse anyone along the campaign trail. They can't bring him out to speak at the Republican National Convention. They can't even mention his name. They can't hold him up as an example of an antithesis of the Obama years, because even the Republicans realized that Obama's 4 years were preceded by 8 years of Bush that are near identical to the 4 years of Obama that they hate so much. They can't even mention George Bush's name. Is George Bush going to be removed from the history books next? I mean, the entire Republican Party has turned their back on George Bush. He is a pariah. He can't even go out and campaign for Republican candidates. They can't even talk about the 8 years of Bush. There's no talk about the 8 years of Bush. And I assume the Democrats are making up for that. And I just find it really, really interesting. And then Paul Ryan has the gall to come out and talk about, oh, Clinton this, Bill Clinton that, when you can't even talk about George Bush. He talks like George Bush was never there. Mitt Romney talks as if George Bush was never there. And there's a good reason why they talk about George Bush was never there, because they can isolate Obama's policies and pick on his spending and pick on his wars and pick on the bailouts and pick on everything else and completely negate the fact that there's 8 years of Bush that led up to Obama and that Obama just took over where George Bush left off. That is the inconvenient truth. That is what the Bushes are representing, and that is what the Republican Party has to turn their back on. Let's remember that these wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, didn't play out quite on the schedule that Obama had promised. And I certainly take issue with that. I take issues with the war altogether. But let's not forget that there was 8 years of these wars when Obama took office, and he had to pick up and continue those wars and continue financing, which means the spending for the wars went on Obama's tab, even though he had nothing to do with starting them. And let's also remember that all the bailouts, which I also take a lot of issue with, and I have issues about the bailouts from day one. But let's also remember that Bush is the one that did all the bailouts. He's the one that bought GM. He's the one that bought AIG. He's the one that bought Citigroup. He's the one that bankrolled and keeps afloat Fannie and Freddie. He's the one that bailed out all the banks worldwide through the Federal Reserve. And that tab, those programs were passed on to Obama. It's not like Obama could have taken office and not continued all those programs. So once again, all that spending that was locked in by the Bush administration had to continue, and it went on Obama's tab. So let me make it clear, and my regulars know, I have no love for Obama. I have no love for the Obama administration. I have no love for liberals or the liberal policies. But I don't have any love for the status quo GOP and their corporate puppets either. And this is really pretty ridiculous that they can act like the 8 years of Bush never happened. How convenient. 8 years of Bush never happened. So anyway, I'm here to remind all the Republicans, all the Republicans that are now lining up to back another corporate puppet bootlicker, Mitt Romney, and his little sidekick, Paul Ryan. He's no better or worse than Bush. He's no better or worse than Obama, but you're going to line up for him again because it's so easy for you to forget Bush. Although I want to finish this story with one little, a couple more addendums about Bush. One is the fact that how ironic that as the Obama administration continued, that a grassroots campaign about "Do you miss Bush yet?" came about. So they could actually joke a little bit about Bush. Do you miss him yet now that things are so bad under Obama? Because, collectively the Republicans are negating the entire 8 years of Bush. But let me finish by saying some nice things about Bush. I'm no fan of the Bush administration or their policies. Never was, never will be. I don't like him or his policies any more than I like Obama and his policies. But I got to hand it to Bush. He had the honor and the character to actually go on television in an interview after he was out of office and say that he doesn't want to get involved in the political process. He's done with it, and good for him. I think that speaks volumes for a character that I didn't know was there. That the man has enough honor to just bow out of this political arena and leave well enough alone. But he should feel betrayed by a Republican base that supported him so admirably through the 8 years, well, until the bitter end. They didn't, not too enamored, not too much love for George Bush by the time he left office. But now the GOP acts like he never existed. What an insult. George Bush, I actually feel bad for you in this moment that your own party has turned on you, and like Ahmadinejad and Israel, the Republican Party wants to wipe George Bush from the pages of history. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.